is a sort. So this routine is doing a sort. In order to do a sort, there are two loops. The first loop runs from 1 to 6, and the second loop runs from I plus 1 to 6. This is called a selection sort. There are many different types of sorting techniques that you get. You also get a bubble sort, a quick sort. There are quite a few different types of sorting techniques that can be used. So here you run the loop from 1 to 6. Some of you may say that this shouldn't be 6, it should actually be 5. And I would agree. However, even if you do leave it at 6, it's not going to give you the wrong output. It probably is easier to remember. Run the loop from 1 to however many elements you have, and then you run it from I plus 1 to 6. I is your outer loop. So the inner loop is always one position more than the outer loop. And then you are checking if the position at I is greater than the position at J. Maybe through a diagram, you can understand this a bit more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are my positions in the array. I'm going to go again, 10, 20, 8, 15, 9, 12. So here, I is going to be set to 1, which means I'm checking the first cell in the array. And then this inner loop is going to execute. The inner loop is going to execute. And remember that the inner loop J is going to complete executing until the loop for the I increments. And the J loop is 1 more than I. So if I is 1, then J is going to be 2. So it's going to compare this cell 10 with 20 and check if it is greater. Is 10 greater than 20? If it is greater, then these three statements you should be very familiar with. That performs a swap. That's how you do a swap. It'll swap the cell in position I with the cell in position J. So is 10 greater than 20? No, it's not. So nothing happens. It then checks position 1 with the next position. Is 10 greater than 8? Yes, it is. So 8 will come in there and 10 goes in there. It checks that cell if that's greater. And now remember that the cell contains 8. Is 8 greater than 15? No. Then checks the next one. Is it greater? No. And then checks the next one. Is that greater? No. In this process, when I was 1 and J constantly changed, and as J changed, we were looking at the different cells, you would have noticed that every time you go through this process, the smallest number will always end up in cell 1. Thereafter, the loop goes back and J now starts at 2. So we are now starting at this point, and it's going to repeat the process where it's going to check cell 2 with cell 3, cell 2 with cell 4, cell 2 with cell 5, cell 2 with cell 6. And when it finds something bigger, it's going to replace cell 2 with the bigger value. And when it completes that process, the smallest value will automatically come into this cell. So whilst 20 is currently in this cell, the smallest value, 20, 10, 15, 9, and 12, 9 would have come to position 2 in the array. And then we go back up, I becomes 3, and then this part of the array is checked. So this is effectively how a selection sort works. It checks a particular value with all the values in front of it to find if a value is bigger, and if it's bigger, it does a swap. In this instance, we're checking if it's greater than. By checking if it's greater than, the array will be sorted in. ascending order. If you want it in descending order, you can change that sign to a less than, and that will give it to you in descending order. This is a selection sort, which is used whenever you need to put values in a particular order. So these are all the basic concepts that you need to know when you're working with arrays. Just to recap, the first thing you need to know is how to do the input. Well, before that is the declaration. Input. You need to know how to do the output. You must know how to go about with sum and average. You should know how to then find high and low. You should know how to search through an array, and you should also know how to sort an array. These are basic techniques that you must know when working with an array. I hope this has helped.